this side.
Okay, good.
Page
'Buddha, bless us and inspire us. Om Ahum Benza Guru Pema Siddhi. Teach us, open the way. Om Ahum Benza Guru Pema Siddhi. Lotus Guru, empower each of us. Om Ahum Benza Guru Pema Siddhi. Beam light into each of us. Om Ahum Benza Guru Pema Siddhi. Illumining us within and without. Om Ahum Benza Guru Pema Siddhi. Om Ahum Benza Guru Pema Siddhi. Awakening the Buddha-ness within. Om Ahum Benza Guru Pema Siddhi. Om Ahum Benza Guru Pema Siddhi. Awakening our body, speech, or energy, and heart, mind. Om Ahum Benza Guru Pema Siddhi. Beam into us, merge with each of us. Om Benza Guru Pema Siddhi. Through Om Ahung in every pore of our body. Om Ahum Benza Guru Pema Siddhi. Om Ahum Benza Guru Pema Siddhi. Purify and transform us. Om Ahum Benza Guru Pema Siddhi. Om Ahum Benza Guru Pema Siddhi. Purifying and transforming all. Om Ahum Benza Guru Pema Siddhi. Om Ahum Benza Guru Pema Siddhi. Transmit your wisdom, love, and dynamic energy to us. Om Ahum Benza Guru Pema Siddhi. 3 jewels, 3 kayas within us. Om Benza Guru Pema Siddhi. Om Ahung. Om Ahum Benza Guru Pema Siddhi. Om Ahum Benza Benza Guru Pema Siddhi. Merge with us, one in the heart center. Om Benza Guru Pema Siddhi. Om Benza Guru Pema Siddhi. For the benefit of one and all. Om Benza Guru Pema Siddhi. Om Benza Guru Pema Siddhi. Joyous Dharma, joyous spirit of awakening, bodhicitta. Om Benza Guru Pema Siddhi. Om Benza Guru Pema Siddhi. Luminous heart mind of awakefulness. Om Benza Guru Pema Siddhi. 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 May the Buddha's blessings ever awaken and illumine our minds. May the enlightened one's blessing and inspiration ever unfold in our hearts. May the inconceivable blessing of awakening itself dispel the momentary illusion we've ever been separate, incomplete, or apart. Homage to the Buddha in your seat. Don't overlook her. Lean back a little and relax. Open the heart, raise the gaze, elevate the scope of global 360-degree sphere of luminous, sensitive, receptive, present awareness. Openness and awareness inseparable. Aware of awareness itself. Awareness transparent to itself. Sky gazing. Space mingling, infinite dissolving, natural body, natural breath and energy, natural heart mind, the three pillars of natural meditation, Dzogchen meditation. Just sitting, just breathing, just being aware, awakeful, resting in awareness itself. A luminous, senseless openness, letting go. Means letting come and go, letting be as it is, in the natural great completeness of things left just as they are, the nirvanic peace of things left just as they are, a lawful unfolding. This breath, only breath, this moment, only moment, nowness awareness, the authentic Buddha within. Let go and let Buddha do it. Imaho. Eyes open, ears open, mouth open, throat open, heart and mind totally open, at ease, deconstricted, decontracted, open to the wisdom of allowing, settled back into being, not just doing, achieving, and becoming. Letting go. Letting things come and go, letting be. Just looking, seeing, and freeing. Experiencing, penetrating or recognizing, seeing through. And third, releasing, allowing. Looking, seeing, freeing, 3 in 1, simultaneous, self-arising, self-liberation. The practice of freedom, of non-attachment, of equanimity. One taste in the great perfection. The natural great completeness of things just as they are. How sweet it is. Imahal. Seeing through all illusory momentary appearances. Seeing through oneself. Seeing Buddha, being Buddha. Nowness, awareness, the authentic Buddha within. Natural meditation. Om Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme. I'm wrapping it up now. Om Mani Padme. Breathe deeply from the lower belly, from the heart. Open the heart. Let it out. Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Don't be self-conscious. This is a Buddhist prayer. No one's listening. Om Mani Padme Om Mani Padme. Heart overflowing with well-wishing, which is loving kindness. Mani Padme. Maitri, metta, loving kindness. Mani Padme. Wishing may all beings be happy, content, fulfilled. Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme. May all beings be awakened, liberated, free. Padme. And may we all together complete the spiritual journey. Om Mani Padme. Love to all beings equally who are like our own family. Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme. Who want the need the same as we do. Om Mani Padme. Compassion for all who suffer, feeling with them and being moved to help. Mani Padme. Mani Padme. Empathy, feeling with them. The essence of compassion, karuna. Mani Padme. Mani Padme. Karuna. Warm, appropriate responsiveness as needed. Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme. Love to all who are just like our own family. Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme. Who hurt, who hope and aspire just like we do. Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme. May all be free from harm, danger, fear. Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme. And enjoy sublime comfort, security, ease, peace. Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme. May you all be healed and whole again. Om Mani Padme. May this planet itself be healed, restored. Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme. Heart overflowing with well wishes, opening like a warm golden sunflower. Padme. A warm golden sun at the heart center, opening, radiating light rays of loving kindness and compassion in all directions at once. From the heart center outwards. Om Mani Padme. Warming up your heart, your whole body, reaching out to embrace all, illumine and touch all. Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme. Light rays reaching out, inhaling all, awakening all, embracing all, including all in our prayers and practices here today. Om Mani Padme. All beings without exception, not just human beings, all beings including oneself. Mani Padme. Mani Padme. Embraced in the natural light of the innate great perfection. Om Mani Padme. The natural state. Om Mani Padme. Love, divine, unconditional. Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme. Embracing all, accepting all just as they are. Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme. Forgiving all, accepting all, one with all. Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme. Including oneself, accepting oneself, warts and all. Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme. Loving oneself, embracing oneself, soaking in it, healing through love, unconditional, divine, complete in love, joy, bliss, shanti, the inner light, the Buddha nature, Buddha-ness, the Dharmakaya. Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme. Om Mani. Joy to the world. Joy, blessings, benedictions, radiate it. Don't be stingy. Mani. Joy. Joyous spirit of awakening, joyous Buddha heart, mind, joyous bodhicitta, joyous, wish-fulfilling jewel of Dharma, joy, equal to all, including all. How sweet it is. Om Mani Padme. All beings, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, goddesses, gods and goddesses, dakinis, angels, on this altar of the earth. How sweet it is. Delight in everyone and everything. What a delight. Thank you, thank you, thank you. May all beings everywhere, with whom we are inseparably interconnected, and who want and need the same as we do, may all be awakened, liberated, healed, fulfilled, and free. May there be peace and harmony in this world, and an end to war, violence, injustice, poverty, and oppression. And may we all together complete the spiritual journey all the way to nirvana, heaven, natural great perfection. It seems redundant to say anything after that, but
Just
therefore I
exactly
put it
what I
on
was
Mirabai.
thinking. No.
We
was just
discussed
thinking.
this, now it's her turn.
You did just say it all. Yeah.
Yum.
It also makes it hard to think about doing anything else. Going home, reintegrating. So great. Yeah. But of course we know that the space that's awakened in this space is available to us everywhere, all the time. And that's what we have to figure out, is how to be in that space all the time, whatever we're doing, and bring that loving presence into everything we do. That's the integration. And that's the work. It's, as you were chanting, I was thinking of, we were both also with Neem Karoli Baba, who was a Hindu. He was really outside form. He grew up as a Hindu, but, he never gave talks. And he pretty much was just a presence, and we were in his presence, and this is with great teachers. You just change from being in the presence of so much unconditional love. Now, science and Danny Goleman and so on they're discovering that it's called mirror neurons, that we change each other just by being in each other's presence. That you actually, at a cellular level, you actually are changing by being in the presence of whomever. So that's why the traditions always say, you know, be in the presence of great teachers, because it doesn't really matter what you do. You know, you can chant, you can listen, you can meditate, but you begin to change in the presence. It's so interesting now that they're talking about it happening through your friends and through anybody you're with, and of course that happens, but it really happens in a powerful way when you're with someone who has very strong presence. And anyhow, the only thing he would ever tell us was, love everyone and serve everyone. Sometimes he'd say, love everyone and feed everyone. And that was it. And that was like, it's like the, you know, the chant, okay, just love everyone and everything will fall into place. That's absolutely true. But now, well, the figuring out or the not figuring out how to do that in every moment in everyday life is, that's the next chapter when you leave the retreat. I recently, one of the things about integrating is reminding yourself of the space of love and insight and wisdom, and when you get so busy with everything else, and and it goes on. I mean, those of you who practiced a long time know this. You have to keep kind of tricking yourself into remembering, because just when you think you've got your program down, you have your altar built and you have your time you're going to set and all of it, it just starts not working. Just because you've done it, and then you're just on automatic. So recently I programmed into my iPhone a reminder twice a day at 9 in the morning and at noon. It comes on with a little ding, and it says, breathe. And then I take 3 deep breaths. It's great. So there's all, you know, it's working now. You know, I once programmed a mindfulness bell into my computer, and for the first some days, you know, every time it rang, it went off at random. I just sit and remember, and then
for a moment.
For a moment. Then after, you know, maybe a week or something, I just completely stopped hearing it. And people would walk through my office or pass and say, "What's that bell?" And I'd say, "What bell?" You know, like, so you have to keep finding ways to do it. The great thing about being together is it goes in deep, and then you just need to remember, and then you can find that place again. What do you think?
As a one-upper, I seem to remember that our guru, Maharaji Nim Karoli Baba, from whom we received our names, as did other people with such names, the Das brothers and others, well known to you perhaps, used to say three things: love, serve, and remember. That's remember God. So I know you forgot that because you're not there yet, but love, serve, and remember God. Of course, it's easy to just say love, serve, and remember so we don't get caught up in dualities and forms God or no theism or male or female God or which God, what God. But love, serve, and remember became a great anthem of the new spirituality in the West since the 60s that Ram Dass, the pioneering teacher Ram Dass, so dear to us and mentor to all of us, brought out in the culture. And remember goes well with mindfulness and remindfulness, remembering what we're doing and being aware of that.
Absolutely.
Remindfulness, as we call it in Tibetan, remindfulness, drempa.
Yeah.
Not just remembering the past, but remembering what we're doing now and being aware of it.
Yeah.
Remindfulness and alert presence of mind. Remembering what we're doing, keep doing it, not forgetting that we're sawing and thinking about other things and cutting off our hand, not forgetting when we're driving and getting caught up with the cell phone or texting or worse, shaving, reading, whatever, poking the person in the back seat that's naughty or whatever, and forget what we're doing. On the other hand, drempa and sheshin in Tibetan, remindfulness and alertness, remembering what we're doing and aware of it. That's the moment-to-moment practice. But again, how? How do we have these moments throughout the day so it starts to pervade the whole day, not just have one when you wake up at 9 a.m. and one before you go to sleep at noon? Kind of traditional morning and evening practice. But, or even just those moments of mindfulness, like the mindfulness bell throughout the day that you soon begin to ignore as we get habituated and then take it for granted. So how do we keep it fresh? In fact, the other day, one of the people, one of our friends here asked about that. And if I remember correctly, which is always doubtful, my answer was based around teachers and spiritual friends. Wasn't that what I said? How to keep going when it got hard. You or somebody sitting over there asked me that. How to keep going when it got difficult. And I said, inspiration and encouragement and help from teachers and spiritual friends, the Sangha. And I was thinking about that later, that, you know, another way of discussing it could be about reflecting yourself. A more philosophical or analytical thought could be thinking about the benefits and the harm, the profit loss, the benefit and harm in losing your awareness in the moment or in keeping it. Or thinking about things like classical subjects of meditation, like impermanence, death, and mortality, that this is the time, we shouldn't put it off. That we're all going to die, but are we really going to live ever, now? Think about causation, what's conducive to what we seek, let's put it grossly, happiness and fulfillment, and what's detrimental to what we seek. So that it reprioritizes paying attention, being involved, staying committed, so that you resurrect your commitment and your intention. Again, remembering, to remember, as the Lama said the other day, not forgetting, and remembering that we've forgotten, noticing we've forgotten, and coming back to what's important to us. Remembering that we won't be here forever, like we're here for another whole day. Let's not waste today checking our voicemail or making a list of all the people we're going to send postcards to about how great this is and they should come too. Maybe we could be here today ourselves and get enlightened and be a Buddha by the time we go home to our postcard writing. So how to re-inspire ourselves is a big question. And so I was going to ask you, and so how, since those days where we were with the masters in ancient India 40 years ago, it seems like ancient days now.
Now we're ancient.
Back in the day, as people say, I always get a kick out of that saying, back in the day, how is it that you feel you've moved your practice on and kept it going and re-inspired yourself to love, serve, and remember, and make that into your life, your practice of loving, serving, and remembering? Loving God, serving God, and remembering God. Loving all and yourself, serving all and yourself, remembering what's important, your true self and authenticity and so on. How have you made that your life with your various career pursuits, parenting, friendship? You know, the other day when I was introducing her, I was trying to touch on various things from the many things I would like to have said. One of the things I plopped out of the side of my mouth was she always has a New Year's party and a Christmas party and a Thanksgiving party. But what I really wanted to say was the moral of that story was you've always been hosting and welcoming and supporting and community making. Not just your family, not just your friends, but these are parties and gatherings that everybody feels free to bring others to. Not just, oh, were you invited to Mira's party because Ram Das and Krishna Das is going to be there. Everybody is free, and nobody is ever excluded or questioned. It's easy to crash Mira's parties. Because Mira's the host, not a guest in this world. She takes the host position of welcoming and providing. That's why I was mentioning that about giving parties, not that she's a party girl. Used to be. So how have you made loving, serving, and remembering your practice and really living the Dharma, not just studying it, not just dreaming about going back to India to see the guru or the guru's reincarnation or the next guru who may come to America or may live in America? Let's not pretend that you have to go and see someone always.
Yeah.
And even here, if you're with your teacher, then you leave, then you're not with your teacher. How do you meet the teacher every day? Like in your practice, in your devotions, or every moment. And not just the human teacher, but the guru principle, the mirror that helps you see your higher self. How do you do that? I know you have an altar and you have statues. I won't say of what, it's too bizarre. Shiva and the monkey god and Buddha and who knows what else. The Virgin Mary and St. Francis. And
I guess that, you know, there's no simple answer to that. And that's the message, that there are just so many different ways in it, and always changing. I mean, they're the ways that the basics of continuing to practice, continuing to renew it through retreats, community, which is really supportive, reading and studying. Also, as I was saying yesterday, getting inspired in different ways by recently this research has been inspiring me. I finally just dove in and just said, this is really what I want to be doing, but I have to find a way, you know, to do it in the world. And so I started doing these, this project of bringing it into different places and in society. And of course, that keeps it alive for me because that's what we're talking about and doing all the time. On the other hand, I have to say that it, like everything that is work, making things happen, is, you know, you can also forget. You can forget right in the middle of planning a retreat so that other people can remember, you know. And so it just goes on. You just have to keep bringing, finding ways, fresh ways, and the eternal ways to keep it alive. And I imagine that just keeps going on until this life is over and the next one begins. But yeah, I mean, you can use everything to help you wake up, and in any circumstance. I was thinking of something after yesterday and talking. I was thinking there really is no circumstance or environment or work that in which you're not being offered the opportunity to wake up. And into my mind came this really extreme example, but not in the work that we've been doing with chaplains and medics, but in another program inside the Army. A soldier who was a sniper learned, I don't know if I told you the story, did I?
That you were going to tell it.
He learned meditation in a program that was specifically for. He learned meditation. He was very moved by it. He really wanted to keep it alive. He got deployed to Iraq. So, I mean, one might easily think this is impossible. Some of these cadets who learned at West Point through a teacher who was teaching a course in poetry and meditation at West Point, which the cadets loved. This is some years ago. Marilyn Nelson, she's a fabulous poet. Her cadets would email back to her that they would keep their meditation practice alive by sitting on the side of their bunks. They'd put their headphones on so the others would think they were listening to music, but actually they'd be meditating. But finding time to meditate is different from waking up through whatever is happening to you in the moment. And so this guy, they were entering a village. They were in this village somewhere in Iraq, and they got the message that there was a young guy coming into the town and that he was a suicide bomber. He had bombs strapped to him. They wanted to take him out without hurting anybody else. And so just after that, he was on the top of a building. He wrote this back to his meditation teacher. He was on the top of a building, and this guy walked into the scene. And just as they were going to get him, there was a schoolyard, and he grabbed two little children and held them close to him. And so there was this guy, and he said, in that moment...
So the sniper
is watching. It's his job to protect everybody in the community. And they know that if they were to shoot this suicide bomber, that it could blow up the bombs. And so the whole thing is very delicate and very careful. Not to mention that the basic thing of, like, it's his job to kill another person. Okay, so all of this is in his mind. And he thinks, he says it's one of the most difficult situations he's ever been in. And he said, I thought in that moment that I've got to call on everything I know. I took some really deep breaths. And then, he said, it just came to me. I shot into the air, and he was so surprised that the kids fell to the ground. And in that moment, he was standing there all by himself. And I shot him, and nobody else was hurt. So I thought, what situation seems less likely to be a dharmic meditative situation? There's the whole issue of whether you should be shooting anybody. But here he found himself in this situation. He was already in the military when he discovered practice. He was put in this situation, and he had to make choices, and he had to make the most wholesome choices that he could. And he did that, and he felt that it was because of his practice, so he wrote this letter back to his meditation teacher. For me, it felt like in every situation we find ourselves in, there's always a way. There's always a way to wake up. There's always a way to call, to frame it as, what's the most wholesome, loving, wise choice I can make in this moment? Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I'm just reeling from,
Yeah.
thinking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were talking a little bit about this yesterday at lunch, about the ethics of teaching meditation or concentration to soldiers. So, you know, is it just so they can kill better, or is it so they can protect the country? And it's not black and white. And then also, you know, whether concentration is enough without wisdom and compassion, like the example of the cat at the mouse hole with total concentration, but that's not necessarily the samadhi or concentration that leads to enlightenment. Or the sniper was a classical example from our teacher in India.
Yeah.
The concentration that the sniper can develop, but it's not necessarily, doesn't necessarily lead to the self-realization, insight, oneness that leads to enlightenment. So concentration itself is not enough. But here we have a great story about how it invokes naturally the ethical and moral, the wisdom, compassion dimension. What is the right and wrong in that moment? Not a bigger question about killing and not killing, which is rather abstract. We mentioned this the other day. The problem of do you nuke the bacteria in your stomach? Do you kill the cockroaches that are taking over the monastery?
Yeah.
What about euthanasia and putting down the pet when it might be the most compassionate thing to do? But you're keeping them alive just because you can't do it. It's more for you than for them keeping them alive, and so on, all these gray areas. Even the discussion that you've had in past years about whether you should be working, serving, and teaching meditation at a place, at a corporation like Mount Santo, which is famously reviled by the green whole earth kind of people for its genetic engineering of seeds and its sort of imperial capitalistic ways in the third world and so on. So I want to just raise our gaze to think about the bigger, the deeper principles here that Mirabai is invoking and pointing to. What is the most wholesome, skillful, compassionate, wise, loving thing to do in the moment? Or not to do? Maybe do less, not just about doing. Or to be in that moment. Maybe just listening or witnessing is better than interfering, and so on. That is also an action. Like peacemakers witnessing in border wars, not just trying to come with an easy answer or fix. All this takes tremendous awareness, obviously. We have to concentrate and focus on deepening our wisdom and insight and awareness of things like the interconnectedness, of hearing the other side, what they're feeling, etc. Now, if you're new at Buddhism, or not new, you might feel, oh, but we're not supposed to kill under any circumstance. We talked about this the other day. But I didn't invoke the scriptural precedent, which I will invoke now, which is the Mahayana Sutra, where it's given the example of the Buddha when he was a bodhisattva in the past life, where he was the captain of a ship with 500 merchants. You know, in those days, people and monks and nuns always traveled in 500s.
Is that right?
No, that's just how the story, how they kept track. It's like in Chinese, the 10,000 things means everything. It doesn't mean 10,000 only. So there were many merchants on a ship crossing the sea. And I'll put it in the sutra terms, and politically incorrect as they are, the great black ogre, meaning the psychopath on board, was going to kill them all, was going to sink the ship, where he had C3, whatever it is, strapped to him. He was going to kill them all. And the captain thought about it, prayed on it, and threw him overboard to the sharks. The bodhisattva,
so that's
who became the
same
Buddha.
Story.
Yeah. He killed the one to save the 500. With much forethought, but also acting quickly enough to avoid the evil in the moment. But he breathed, he thought about it, he prayed on it, he meditated. He threw him overboard to feed the sharks. And it says in the sutra, therefore, when that captain died, he had a moment of pain and suffering, and then he was reborn in a higher realm and progressed on toward Buddhahood eventually. The bodhisattva killed to save the 500. So even in that moment, or, you know, what do you do if somebody's getting mugged in the street? Do you interfere? Do you act? Do you fight? Do you protect? What do you do if you're in the law enforcement business? And so forth. But doesn't it shake down to everyday life? What do you do when your children are getting spoiled or outrageous, and you have to say no or be the bad cop, not always the good cop. Wrathful compassion, ruthless compassion, not just always pouring honey on everybody's head and saying yes. So this is where this awareness comes in. To be more skillful, to really reflect and consider, and also be sharp enough that you can process it quickly as needed, not just very slowly when it might be too late, like in the case of the sniper or the captain with the serial killer aboard. So I feel, and you mentioned this yesterday at lunch, even if we're going to talk about our jobs or economics or any field, obviously Dharma has had a great impact in the Western fields in recent decades and centuries, even in psychology, in health and healing, in the arts, now in neuroscience, in nonviolent social activism, in vegetarianism, many things we could mention. Now in education, higher education, through contemplative education that you're much involved in. But Dharma also has a lot, I think, to say about, obviously, not just one's own greed, hatred, and delusion, the dualism, egotism, but we can understand economics, like how groups act, how societies act, leading to all the great inequalities in our world, how there's enough resources for everybody, but they're misallocated and hoarded. We can understand the group karmas of greed and meanness and fear and defensiveness and all that goes with it, and whatever preventative interventions and all these compassionate conservatism, all these euphemisms for doing what we want, for the self-interest of real politics, self-interest. That's why in Buddhism we say it's not money that's the root of all evil. It's not women, meaning the other sex. We can't even say that today. What can you say? It's not even desire that's the root of all evil. It's ignorance that's the root of all evil. That's the root of desire. In wisdom, there's nothing lacking to desire, nothing extra to push away or get rid of. So even at the level of economics and law and whatever field you're in, this can be very applicable and important. Parenting. Heart-centered, service-oriented leadership. RFK, Robert F. Kennedy, said, politics is an honorable profession. Who can say that today without snickering? And yet, isn't the essence, aren't most young people, brilliant young people who go into that theoretically and go through all the schooling and graduate schooling and foreign service and out-of-the-way places, aren't they really trying to serve? It's called public service. Trying to serve, trying to make a better world and a better society. So, again, our challenge is how we integrate our, quote, unique gift into the world. What's given to us and what we give that refines the gift.
Yeah, that's true. There's a really brilliant young economist at Amherst teaching Buddhist economics. What he teaches is basically self-awareness, particularly awareness of desire, of aversion, of regret, knowing that all of economics is based on us making decisions about stuff, getting more stuff, selling stuff, so on. Why we do that is based on feelings of desire, regret. Why do we have so much desire? Because we feel like we need something more. All of that, but everything that you investigate and discover in this practice is when it gets out into the world, it translates economically. So, yes, no one has ever mentioned that. I thought that and he has his students do things like walk through the mall and just notice what objects are pulling them this way and what objects they're pushing away. And then he does practices on looking at regret and then understanding how regret factors into buying things when we think we might regret having, or we might regret not having bought it. That's all in there when you're making these decisions. So for economists, when they're like trying to look at how things are going to unfold, it's important to understand that. When the whole financial collapse started, and Alan Greenspan said to the country, "I'm sorry, I was wrong. I had a wrong idea. I always thought that everybody would act on self-interest. This is a basic economic theory. But what I felt when I heard him saying that was he didn't have any understanding about the depth and complexity of self-interest. In the purest sense, we try to act in our self-interest, but most of the time we don't have any idea what our real self-interest is. And that he put it forward so simply. Well, people always act in their self-interest, with no suggestion that this might be a very complex situation.
Yeah.
I thought,
well, which self they're serving, higher self of the selves, what
all
level of
that,
self-interest,
so,
or individual or group self-interest.
So just taking that area, just practice when you beam out that awareness that you develop through practicing onto anything.
Your area.
But even economics, it's just so interesting and helpful, and will help you walk more gracefully through the world, for sure.
One of the most wonderful bodhisattvas I've ever known as a business person in the world was C.T. Shen, who founded the Institute for the World Religions.
Oh, yeah, I know.
And he was the head of the American Steamship Company. He was an immigrant from China. He was from Buddhist family. His father, his parents had to leave the communist China when it was taken over in the 40s and 30s, and they went to Hong Kong, and then they came to America. He was a multimillionaire businessman, but he was so kind, generous, humble, everything that a Confucian ethics, Christian ethicist would be. And he did his work through philanthropy. But he didn't just sign checks. He was boots on the ground. He went to retreats. He saw what was needed. He sponsored translators. He developed practice centers, like he gave the Karmapa, the hotel on top of Mead Mountain in Woodstock. That's now his monastery in New York, right. KTD in Woodstock. But so many different projects for world religions, Institute of World Religions. But he was such a delightful person to be with. And after his wife died and his kids grew up and his grandchildren grew up, then he retired to a place near here in Putnam County, the Chinese Buddhist monastery, and spent the rest of his years, about 15 years, studying the Prajnaparamita Sutras and meditating. And he was such a big businessman. He really followed that model of, like in Hinduism, the 4 stages of life: student, family person, adult contributor, community, grandparent, elder, helper, benefactor, and then thinking about the next life, the 4th stage, practice, thinking about the eternity, the bigger picture. Do you know any moles in the system that you could mention, like Dag Hammarskjöld, who was the secretary, or U Thant, the secretaries of the UN, who was so spiritual? Or Marilyn Wright Edelman, who I heard, the founder of the renowned Children's Defense Fund, who's an international social activist. Marilyn Wright Edelman, one of the greatest public speakers in the world and aspiring speakers. She takes 1 day off a week to be silent.
Yeah.
She doesn't even have to be alone. She's a Christian soul. She doesn't see it the way we do. She goes hiking and does things with people, but they have to understand that day she is not talking. You can be with her, but that day she doesn't talk. And the other 6 days of the week, she's like a 1,000-armed Buddha of compassion. Can you think of anybody who is so in the world and not of it, like the Dalai Lama? That's the too easy example.
Yeah. Well, let me percolate a little bit on that. But maybe we should have some questions.
Questions, yes, good.
Yeah.
Who has the mic today? Yes, Ricky.
Thank you very much for being here. I grew up in the same Bronx apartment building as the Halbins, so I'm very familiar with illuminations, and it's really great to see you. Yeah. About the same time that you were putting together illuminations in the 70s, Master Sheng Yen was in a Buddhist temple of enlightenment in the Bronx, just down the street from where we lived. And I started to study Dharma with him. was about 30 years ago. He died almost a year ago, and I learned a great deal from his death and the rituals around it, and I'm still learning about how to move on with my practice without my teacher. And I was hoping that you and maybe Surya Das could also talk about this. What was it like for you when one of your spiritual teachers died?
It was well, it was kind of a realization of everything that he always told us, which is that it's all within, that I, whoever he was, you know, am always here. One time someone asked Chogyam Trungpa, what do you, if it's all within you, what do you need a guru for? He said, you need a guru to tell you it's all within you.
To remind you.
So it, I mean, the sadness that I sense that you're feeling now and the loss was huge, that level. But then the teaching was simply that, you know, I'm just here to remind you, and you know. And then we had, my teacher, Neem Karoli Baba, he died for us suddenly. He was 75 or something, but we had no idea that he was just gone, and it was stunning. And, but that's what it was. Then I had to take refuge in, and I mean, there were many other wonderful teachers in my life, but I just had to know him in a different way. And I'm sure you're already experiencing that.
Thank you. I'd just like to give you a piece of artwork with Master Shingen's picture on it.
Thank you.
I can't resist but telling a little story, which I rarely do, about my first guru, Neem Karoli Baba Maharaj. Maharaji, as he's known in Ram Dass's books, so known by Westerners as Maharaji. Great king or great saint, sage. I met him when I was quite young, I mean even younger than you. So I was like 21 or something, and I never knew, when I was in India, I never knew which end was up or what was going on, not that I do now. So we were with him in those days on and off, and he would disappear or go to other places. He was a wandering holy person. But to make a long story short, he gave me my name. He was my guru. I knew him in person. What knew means, I don't know. I mean, I didn't even speak his language, but we had translation. But I only really met him after he died through the satsang, the sangha, the community. Some of you have heard me say this before, so I'm not going to talk about now how it's all within, which is of course true. And it's the whole message that the guru is just a gateway to God, the doorway. Don't get stuck in the door or collect door frames. The guru is a mirror to see who you truly are, that the God, the guru, and self are one. Let's put it in Buddhist. That the Dharmakaya, the root Lama, and the practitioner are one. But I only really met him afterwards in America through the satsang, through the lovers of my life, like all of you, all. The satsang, our sangha, the beautiful people that, you know, the love, like what Jesus said, where two or more of you have gathered, there I am. That was the message. After I'm gone, look for me in each other and find me everywhere and within all of your relations, not just within yourself, within everything and everyone. And I only really got to know him from the satsang. And it's not like he died and we all remembered the oneness. He always used to say, Sabak. It's all one. Sabak, he was old. Sabak. We were young, he was old. He'd be sitting up there, Sabak. We'd say, Maharaji, what's the difference between Hinduism and Buddhism? Should we go here or there? He'd say, serve all the saints. Sabak. So I only really met him through the satsang, the love that I experienced. That is him. That's the real him. And more of a, for me, I feel like, as you do, you didn't say exactly, our gurus never died. Because the guru never dies, the person dies. The old Indian guy died, but our guru never died, he's always with us. That's the guru, real guru, the guru principle. Like the Buddha never died. Of course, impermanence is the law. The 80-year-old Buddha Gautama, formerly known as Prince Siddhartha, died when he was 80 under a tree, laid down on his right side. And he said, all things are impermanent, work out your own liberation. Of course, he died. But the real Buddha never died. He's sitting on the Vulture Peak teaching right now, as Thich Nhat Hanh said. But don't think he's over in India sitting on that peak. He's teaching right now, and I'm not talking about myself. Every sound, every moment is the self-resonance of the Dharma, the Dharmakaya. The Buddha never died. He's always with us. The Guru never died. My Khenpo Rinpoche is always with me. He never died. When you leave here, you meet your teacher, your guru in your practice, even here. Whether that person is in the room or not, your teacher, your great master Shen Yen, and I recommend his books. He was this Chinese Zen master of our time, the great Shen Yen, who lived in New York for quite a while. But he never died. His Buddha mind is still active. His teachings. When you read a real book like Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, you meet the mind of the master. Suzuki Roshi never died. He is in that transmissional book, not just the information. The vibe that you get from it, the transmission. And I want to say again, I found my guru more from the satsang than from a few years with him when I was young, didn't speak his language, and didn't know what was doing. And was always looking around at things, and not necessarily extracting the essence of the moment, the situation, the truth of what was happening. Questions, please. And ask them to Mirabai.
Actually, it's a question about the speaking practice. Sorry.
Where are you?
Where is that little voice coming from?
I was having trouble with the speaking practice. So, so the instructions were to kind of listen to the person and then also notice what's arising for you. So I notice, I think my pattern when I'm talking is to listen to the person, and then if I go off on myself, to draw myself back to the person. So that my complete attention is on them. And then, of course, I completely miss what's going on with me, which creates an imbalance. But I was wondering, and I know they don't happen at the same time, but they feel like they're happening at the same time. Can you speak a little bit about the listening to yourself and the whole Migpa perspective?
Perspective, conceptualization.
Yeah. The listening totally to the speaker and letting go of everything else that's a concentration practice. Just the way you would concentrate on your breath or on a sound, you'd let everything go. During that practice, it's not your intention to be aware of everything. However, that's practice. Then, once that gets strong, then you open up into panoramic awareness of everything that's going on in you, and you can inside you and the world around you, and you can at the same time hold the attention on the speaker. It's an externalized form of the same practice of starting with one point and then being able to hold all of yourself at the same time. And that's now we're like going back into the world. You're going to be holding yourself, your practice, your awareness, and we're going to be called on to also be aware of everything that's going on around and then act appropriately in each moment, make good choices. Does that make sense? Yeah. So we were doing that almost like a shamatha practice, a concentration practice. But then there are, you know, and most of the time when you listen, you are actually practicing a kind of awareness that is the one pointed on the person and being aware of yourself and being aware of what's around you. But this was a kind of to refine that piece because we often let that part go.
So are there practices, like you're saying that practice we did was to focus. Are there practices that are around focusing and then paying attention to what's arising in you? And then I'm assuming at the highest level, being completely aware of what's going, you know, if there's a sniper in the window,
Yeah.
you know, telling someone to duck or, you know, and keeping it all together or something.
Well, I mean, I think the basic meditation practices do that.
Okay.
And then, but you could do that. I mean, I haven't, usually when we do this practice, it's with people who are kind of just beginning to be aware that listening to somebody is something that they don't do very well a lot of the time. But if you did a whole retreat, for example, on, you know, on kind of mindful or meditative communication, you know, you'd work up to that. And you could imagine what it would be, I think. Yeah.
Thank you.
So let me give a little appreciation and also put out a challenge. Appreciate that nearby your exercise is a rare and valuable, you know, I don't know who you got it from, but we all stand on the shoulders of giants or sit in the lap of giants. You know, it's a rare to have mindful talking meditation. We all hear about mindfulness of breath, basic Buddhist meditation, or more evolved mindfulness of feelings, sensations, perceptions, or mindfulness of thoughts, awareness, space, right? And maybe we hear about walking. Oh, meditation isn't just sitting. You can do walking meditation, or you can do it eyes open. Maybe we hear about chanting meditation, or meditation and movement. Oh, that means Tai Chi, Qigong, karate. That doesn't mean football, boxing, skiing. No, but today we have the Zen and the art of tennis, and so people are getting with that idea. We hear about mindful chewing. But we don't hear about mindful talking. We hear walking meditation, chewing meditation. We don't hear talking meditation. For a couple of reasons. One, it's very challenging. We also don't hear whatever this is, laptoping, typing, you know, meditate, what's this?
Yeah.
You know, screen awareness meditation, because it's challenging. This is advanced practice. Talking meditation, screen meditation. Texting, you know, thumbing meditation.
We talked about that yesterday.
Yeah,
actually.
good. And talking meditation is a great one. I challenge you to try and take home, especially those of you who are talkers. Not everybody is silent much of the day, just alone, you know, raking their organic garden or driving a long-distance truck. If you can't cultivate mindfulness while talking, that takes out about 90% of the day, even at night.
It's true.
Sleep talking, and so on. Just awakening in the dream and knowing you're talking. So I'm putting out the challenge of developing talking meditation for Western Dharma and modern Dharma times. Not just chewing meditation. Oh, chewing a raisin 100 times. That's mindfulness in action. Yeah, how much of your day can you spend doing that?
Eating raisins.
Eating one raisin at a time. I mean, even lunch hour wouldn't be long enough. Talking meditation. And by extension, everything, you know, meditation. Everything Zen, everything Dzogchen. That's the challenge of integration. And that's the bigger practice, not just sky mind. Sky mind is still a narrow band of meditation that we're doing in a limited way here, inclusive as it is, not just narrow on breath or candle flame or mantra, panoramic awareness, but it's still, look, it's a meditation. How do we make everything Zen? Sex Zen. Not just sitting Zen, walking Zen, talking Zen, sexing Zen, whatever, computing Zen. Questions, please. In the back row there. Evelyn. Mirabai, I'd like you to know Evelyn. She's our clearest and dearest member.
Thank you.
She's been a Zen master for a long time.
Master?
Mistress.
Slave.
Even better.
Okay,
Getting right to the point.
getting back to the chewing meditation. When I go out to Ruth Dennison's place out in Joshua Tree for a retreat, Ruth is giving the Dharma 24 hours a day, so that when we're at lunch,
Talking.
it's just Dharma coming out. But we do a chewing, what you call it chewing, but actually it's an eating meditation where you start from the time that you look at the food and you take the fork into your mouth and you're meditating and you see where the tongue goes and the chewing and slowly doing it, just completely focused on it. And then as it goes down your gullet, down your intestines, wherever that is, and it's a marvelous meditation because aside from the fact that your stomach loves it because you're doing it very slowly, it is a spiritual thing too. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you. That's great.
In the back row, sorry, don't know your name.
Some 12 years ago, I spent an extended period of time in Qinghai, which is the non-Tibet half of Tibet, and had the chance to speak through an interpreter to quite a few monks from quite a few monasteries and ask them all the same question. In your stay in this monastery, in your experience, how many monks have become enlightened? And I got two answers. None. And I heard of a guy a few years before I arrived. My conclusion was, the bottom line for me is, go with metta and mindfulness and forget the rest. I'd like your reaction to that.
That's for you. Thank you.
I think that works fine. If it was a Zen story, it would say, if it was in one of my books, if I made up that story for teaching purposes, I would tell this.
You make up stories for teaching purposes?
It's a true story.
Mine are what should and could have happened. I would say, that, but then I asked half the monks, they said none, and half said all. But that's just emphasizing the great natural perfection of things as they are and not to make enlightenment the goal and, pie in the sky, rainbow, pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. We've talked about that. Trungpa's famous statement, enlightenment is the biggest disappointment of all. Just to puncture that balloon. Not that he didn't spend his whole life and his new life, and he's still publishing books long after he's dead about how to get enlightened. But getting more subtler to what, as you said, it really could be, the enlightened life, not just enlightenment later. Metta, what'd you say, metta and mindfulness. So that's total practice, and that's enough. And of course, that is the essence of a complete path in Buddhism, the Theravadan path. But then you might say, why do Theravadan monks and nuns do so many other things? Even monasticism and vows and trainings and fasting and chanting and praying. But you should be asking the questions now, not me. I've been asking them all week. Mira, would you like to say anything about metta and mindfulness as being sufficient and complete? Or not? What about service? What about compassion and action in the world?
I'll say one thing about it, because it's been, as you can probably gather, a big part of my path. But I do think that the essence of the Bodhisattva vow, whether you understand is that, or the reaching out toward others, the commitment to the relief of suffering is really important. And sometimes if you just if you're just doing mindfulness practice and then metta, which obviously I love, but then it's a little bit like you can be resting in the world, and it's a little like whatever suffering happens to come right in front of you, you're loving toward that person. But there isn't any active commitment toward the relief of suffering of all beings. And I think that that changes things radically. And that's always what I've been really drawn to. But you know, the reason there are so many different ways to do it is because different people are drawn to different practice, and it works in different ways, you know, and at different times in your life. So.
Last question, Peter. Wait for the mic. He's a professor of psychology and old Zen student, so be nice to him. He needs our help.
Why? That would be unique. You mentioned you would post or have some suggested readings.
I only put up some on work, you know, making your work practice, or, you know, understanding your work as practice. But we also put the website of Contemplative Mind up there. And if you are a professor, are you teaching now?
He's also a Zen student.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he doesn't know.
You might find many things on that site that are useful. I really didn't talk about it much at all, but lots of people now are looking at the nature of education, how we learn. And since one could look at this path and these practices as a form of education, that many people are, you know, looking in a different way. I noticed this morning when you said I loved this, the inconceivable blessing of wisdom. That is kind of at the heart of it, that in American education is based, as you know, on the scientific method and on critical thinking and so on since the Enlightenment, which is so interesting that that's what it's named. But in fact, wisdom is inconceivable. Wisdom is not reachable through the rational mind. And so there is a whole movement really coming out of people who've done practice in this country to look at what might be called contemplative ways of knowing, and in everything from the arts to science. And of course in science, the great understandings in science came through that leap, not through, I mean, you go through all the preparation very rationally, but it's that leap that where Einstein and others discovered new principles. So it's really fascinating what's going on. Whole new contemplative epistemology and pedagogies as well. So people are bringing amazing practices into the classroom, and then letting practices like the economics one I was talking about emerge from the subjects themselves. So anyhow, do come to the site. There's a lot, and we have conferences on all of this. There's one coming up at Amherst, and that could interest you. Yeah, and anybody else who teaches.
I like to think of it as true higher education.
Yeah.
Higher education.
Yeah.
So we're going to end here. Mirabai is leaving this afternoon, so I think I want to thank her and appreciate her as always, and I can never love and repay you, and I try to repay you and all of my elders and friends by paying it forward, passing it on. And thank you for coming so much, and I know you'll come again. Did you want to say?
I wanted to say I loved being here. I loved being with you. I mean, it's such a gift to walk in to a group of people who've been practicing and are just so open and loving and welcoming. It's just great. Try it sometime. Thank you.
Let's give Mirabai a hand. Give it up for Mirabai Bush. Wow, a sitting ovation.
Thank you. Thank you. May you all be happy.
Thank you so much. Jess will collect this stuff.
Okay.
Nearby, interested always in people and personally, so that's why I try to kind of introduce people as you talk to them. You know, like Peter's a professor of psychology. Son is 29. He comes from North Vietnam. He's in America learning English, and from North Vietnam, not just South Vietnam.
Wonderful.
And he's a Theravadan Buddhist.
Wonderful. Nice to meet you. Yeah.
And I wish I could introduce all of you one by one, but I can't even remember you, David, so I won't.
Bye.
David, one of Hilda's old disciples, David Green from Queens.
We probably met.
Can I ask you all to remain in the hall for just a few minutes, please? So, speaking about teachers who are no longer with us, there's a great tradition in Tibetan Buddhism of a kind of prayer called calling the Lama from afar. And very often, students of the Dharma were several valleys away, mountain ranges away from their teacher. So this tradition grew up, and in our lineage, it's a very beautiful prayer, and it ends simply with the words, unrepayable kindness, only remember the Lama. Unrepayable kindness, only remember the Lama. And like most things in Tibetan Buddhism, it works on several levels. At its most subtle, it is a reminder to remember, as Lama Surya has been telling us all week, to remember ourselves, to remember who and what we truly are. On an inner level, it's a reminder to remember the Dharma, the teachings, which the Lama embodies. And on an outer level, it's a reminder to remember the Dharma and the Lama in our practice, in everyday life. And to remember and be grateful for what the Lama offers to us. There is in the East, and has been for centuries and centuries, a very strong tradition of supporting teachers of the Dharma, mindful of the way in which they give up so much in order to bring this blessed Dharma to us in ways that we can readily understand and appreciate and benefit from. And particularly in this tradition, it's vitally important, and it has been for thousands of years, vitally important that people recognize the extraordinary gift that is passed down in an unbroken lineage from teacher to disciple, and then the disciple becomes a teacher and in turn passes it on. And what that enables to happen is this, in our society, most unusual way of teaching. You can go anywhere in our culture and find 1 million different workshops, different academic environments, different professional trainings, different self-help modalities that will simply give you more information, will simply move the deck chairs around on the Titanic, and will not provide any ultimate solutions. It's very rare, indeed, to find a living tradition that has been passed down by word of mouth from teacher to disciple in an unbroken chain for longer than we can almost imagine. And it's been passed down in this way because at all stages throughout that process, people realized how precious, how vitally important these teachings were, and not just to themselves, but to those who would follow. And as a result, the lineage has been supported in passing these teachings down in ways that they can be practiced and realized by generation after generation after generation. It's been supported by people who were not only concerned about their own well-being, but were concerned for future generations. And in a very real sense, that we are among those future generations. We are here today with a holder of the Dzogchen lineage, Lama Surya Das, as a result of their kindness, as a result of their having supported his teachers and his teachers' teachers and his teachers' teachers' teachers. The teachings truly are beyond value. They're priceless. They're not of this world. And yet our teacher has all of the worldly expenses that we all face. And our society hasn't yet developed teaching the Dharma as one of those careers that come with benefits and pensions and all the rest of it. Hopefully it will someday. But for now, the teachings and the teacher are supported by whatever we choose to give. None of what is paid by way of registration for the retreat goes to Lama Surya Das. It all goes mostly to Garrison Institute in respect of accommodation and meals for us, and the remainder to support the retreat generally and the retreat program and the other programs of Dzogchen Center. So Lama Surya Das only receives whatever it is that we choose at the end of retreat, if we do, to give him as a donation. And people often ask, well, how much should I give? And there really is no guideline there. It's a very personal decision that can only be based on your own knowledge of your own resources and your own sense of how meaningful this is to you, both in terms of what has been given to us this week and in terms of what it may mean to preserve it, to help preserve it for future generations. So we have a beautiful box outside in the hall, and I suspect envelopes under everybody's door with a form that you can fill in and return to the box. If you could do that as soon as possible, if you are going to join in this wonderful practice of dana, it makes the end of retreat a little easier in terms of getting that all dealt with. Whatever you choose to give is tax deductible. It goes to Dzogchen Center and then goes from them directly to Lama Surya. Everything you give goes to Lama Surya. So do hope that you will join us in this wonderful practice to whatever extent feels right to you. And you've already given a great gift to the teacher and to all of us just by being here. We truly appreciate your support and your presence and your practice. Thank you all.